Aterian is the Africa-focused critical minerals exploration and development company. In the summer of 2025, it's told investors about results from a drilling campaign in Rwanda, partners Rio Tinto exercising earning rights, new licenses, and AI-driven exploration initiatives. To talk us through all of that, I'm delighted to be joined by the Chief Executive, Simon Rollason. So, Simon, to the drilling campaign, only 2 of the 12 defined prospect areas drilled. Is the drilling campaign finished, or will the other 10 be drilled eventually?
Well, we're hoping that the drilling will progress as the project advances. What we're doing with Rio at the moment is waiting for end of September, beginning of October. We've got a meeting with them to discuss the work program going forwards and how they'd like to sort of set out their plans. You know, with Rio, they're involved in Western Rwanda in a much bigger project where they're doing regional exploration across much of the Western province. So our project folds into their sort of activities that they're investigating as well. So I think what they're doing is they're just waiting to get some outcomes of results from that program, and then they'll bring that into us and how they want to proceed with us. But, you know, I think it's a very positive thing for the company.
So in terms of the data, what will you do with the data gleaned from your project? What will happen with that? Or are you just waiting on Rio Tinto?
No, we're looking at the data because, you know, with every new project and every first hole that you drill, there's significant learnings to be had. And I think that's sort of been evidenced in the results that we got from Rio Tinto from the drilling. It was a limited drilling campaign. You know, it's 4 holes over 2 of the prospects, like you said. One had 3 holes on it, and the other had just a single hole. Now, the main target area that they were looking at was the one that we always called HCK1, which is a sort of long linear ridge with workings, artisanal workings across the top that showed the evidence of the pegmatite. And we knew from historical activities that there was quite significant elevated values in the tantalum and the niobium. But what we didn't realize at the time when we first got into the project was what was the opportunity for the lithium at depth, because, you know, the lithium is quite a soluble metal, so it's been leached out of those upper weathered horizons, and the drilling has evidenced that quite nicely. You know, what we did see through the drilling was multiple pegmatites, some of them quite significant in their widths. And with the result that we had, it sort of demonstrates that, yes, there's spodumene present within some of these pegmatites. And I think that's the real sort of key. But the nice thing was that, you know, the interval that was reported was just shy of 7 meters, and it was 2.1% lithium, which is pretty high grade. But it had a core of 3.5 meters at 3.2% lithium. So I think that's very encouraging. But what we do notice is the effect of the weathering. It was deeper than we had anticipated. And I think possibly that is related to weathering down structures, because these pegmatites that host the mineralization invade along these structures. So you do get localized deeper weathering. And I think the key for this project now is to understand, are there areas where the weathering is less deep? But also where we drilled on HCK1, we drilled up on the top of the ridge, and it has an elevation change between the top of the ridge and the valley of around about 100 meters. So there's potential to come in off the valley and drill under the weathering zone and into the fresh pegmatite below. But, you know, these are discussions that we'll have with Rio. They've got their view, their ideas, and we're trying to come to a common consensus.
So Rio Tinto has exercised its earning rights. It now owns 51% of the HCK license. You know, how does the joint venture work in terms of Aterian making money? And does Rio Tinto bear most of the costs?
Yeah, Rio will continue to cover those costs through stage 2. So they're committed to $4.5 million over the next 3 years or so. How do we make money from it? I don't know if we actually make money, but we have added value, because with every incremental step of exploration and drilling and progressing the JV through stage 1 to stage 2, it has an inherent value. Now what that value is very subjective, but it enables us to have that opportunity in the future that we could sort of monetize that shareholding that we have and bring money into the company. And I think it also adds value to us as a company in Rwanda because it's further evidencing the lithium opportunity in Rwanda. So, we firmly believe that the country could be, the new lithium frontier in Africa.
Okay, but the company Aterian is making money. How is it doing that? Because, of course, you have a portfolio. You're not just the HCK license.
No, not at all. For the audience who aren't familiar with the company, we are very much focused on copper and lithium in Africa, where we're working in Rwanda. That was the original country we started in. Then we moved into Morocco, where we acquired a set of assets, primarily for copper, mainly sedimentary hosted copper. And then we had an opportunity beginning of last year to acquire a private company in Botswana that held a couple of licenses, one up in the Kalahari Copper Belt and 3 around the Makgadikgadi-Panza region, which had been designated by the government as an area of potential lithium brine opportunity. And since then, we've sort of added on to that Botswana portfolio. But in Rwanda, what we are looking at the moment, and we're underway, is a mineral trading division. So with the mineral trading, we can buy up concentrates from small-scale miners within the country. They have to be traceability compliant. So, we ourselves are members of ITSCI, which is the International Supply Chain Initiative, and the people that we acquire material from also have to be compliant. And so we've done, over the last 2 years, site visits to around about 35, 40 of these small-scale operations where we've gone in and our teams looked at the operation, looked at the grade of the material, what are the average volumes they're mining, what's your labor force, what's the complement, make sure there's no children involved in any of the activities. So we've got a long checklist that we go through with each of these potential suppliers. And we're busy at the moment. The team in country is up and running. It's buying material. We're sort of cleaning and upgrading it and storing it in Kigali, where we have our facility. And then I think 2 months ago, or 3 months ago now, we agreed a trade financing facility with an offtake partner who will basically take our product and market it overseas, mainly in Asia, I think, to begin with. And that itself is a valuable relationship because it's allowing us to get much better intelligence on the whole tantalum market, not only in Rwanda, but internationally as well. And so they've been very good in guiding us through that whole process. And we're hopeful that potentially we'll have our first export of material in a couple of weeks' time. But, the trade finance facility is a $4.5 million pot. And how it works is once we get the material to the export port, initially probably Dar es Salaam, we get a payback of 85% of the value of that product. And then we get the balance once it's been delivered and signed off by the customer. So it creates that liquidity that's required to keep the operation going rather than sort of like having to spend a lot of money to buy the material and then wait till it gets to an end user and then get paid. So it's sort of in operation and it's running quite nicely at the moment. But with all these things, when you start off, you have to take baby steps and you have to understand the market. It's a competitive market in Rwanda when it comes to the mineral concentrates. And it's just finding our way. And we seem to be sort of making good inroads. And hopefully that will generate the income that will initially support Rwanda, but then also produce the finance that will allow us to do exploration in other areas.
Okay, understood. So you're not making money yet. Sorry, I thought that facility was already operational. But so thank you for talking to me about that. So you mentioned Botswana there. You've expanded your licenses and the copper belt. So what's the plan for these licenses? And again, how do they create value for shareholders?
Well, I think the beauty of Botswana is, and I have a preference for Botswana because I know the country very well. I grew up there as a youngster. But for investors, I think they see it as a sound destination. It's got a good mining code, good government, and good prospects. And the government's very pro diversifying away from the diamond sector. And so it's encouraging companies to come into the country and look at other commodities. And the Kalahari Copper Belt up in the northern part of the country is a very active area. You know, I remember it being looked at sort of 30, 35 years ago. But it's in the last sort of 10 to 15 years that it's really accelerated in its sort of profile as a destination for copper explorers. And, you know, the interesting thing is that it's just not centered in Botswana. The belt, it's transnational. It goes across into Namibia as well. So it's, both sides of the border are very active in terms of exploration. But the challenge, I think, is for anyone who wants to enter the belt and gain access to licenses, they're going to find it very, very difficult because there's not much free land available. And we've been quite fortunate with our partner on the ground who's, you know, sort of built up the portfolio. So we've got 10 licenses now that we've been sort of evaluating and deciding the best way to go. We were at 7 licenses, and we knew the plan that we were going to follow in terms of the follow-up on the ground with the geophysics and some geochemistry. But we just decided to put a little bit of a hold on that while we evaluate the 3 new licenses, because some of those look to be, you know, rather prospective. So we want to build that all into one pot and then decide, okay, let's take 3 of the licenses of the 10 and let's get on the ground and evaluate those, you know, the ones that we consider to be the highest priority or the best rated licenses. But, you know, you look at the merging belt itself and you look at the activity that's gone on between companies, you know, licenses there are extremely valuable. People are prepared to pay a premium to gain access to the belt. And I think that's where the value of the Botswana portfolio comes in, is that we've got some prime licenses in the right jurisdiction with significant value to them.
Of course, though, Simon, exploration is costly. So the recent collaboration with a machine learning startup, I'm sure, is that part of the strategy to accelerate and de-risk exploration modeling, this AI initiative?
Absolutely, because, you know, there's several AI companies out there, and people have been using them, some with some success, others we don't really know about. But we had this opportunity with this startup to get involved with them at the early stage. And it's very interesting because they obviously have the tech skills and the knowledge. They do have some technical understanding and background as well. But we're working very closely with them on one of the projects in Morocco so that we can put in a lot of geological understanding into the modeling that they're doing. And the outcome, hopefully, will be something that says, okay, you've got a prospective area over here that you haven't looked at to try and improve the targeting. And it's kind of using the data that we have. So we're looking at the Agdes property. So Agdes has regional geology, regional geophysics, and then a lot of data that's been generated over the years by the company. So you've got ground-based geophysics, geochemistry, a lot of mapping, a lot of lab work, and some drill data. So we're plugging this all in. We're working with the AI company on how best to use that data and what does the data really mean from a geological standpoint. And it goes back to, I think, Cape Town, the Indaba this year, where I was involved in a panel discussion about AI and the future of geologists and their roles. You know, do the machines take over? And without doubt, they won't. But AI certainly has significant value for companies in terms of accelerating the early stage exploration from, say, having 1,000 square kilometers of ground in a particular country, where you can then narrow that down to, say, 50 square kilometers. And also, instead of taking 3-4 years to get to your point where you're busy drilling, you can do that in a much shorter space of time. So that has a knock-on effect in terms of your cost savings, because, you know, you've got less time on the ground, but you will always have to have the geological input to verify the data. And what we're doing with the AI company is actually providing a lot of that input into the starting process while they build up their model.
Okay, I'm just wondering, how soon might that tech, that application, be ready to benefit Aterian, and would the tech be exclusive to the company?
No, it wouldn't be exclusive because they are working with 1 or 2 other companies at the same time while they build up this sort of machine learning model that will take information from different types of prospects, and it's how you use that information, the relationships between geochemistry and geophysics and geology. But what we're hoping for is that it will be something that we will then form a partnership with them going forward. So stage one is really this process that we're going through now. It's developing the model, making sure it spits out the right information that makes sense, and then moving on to stage two, which would be rolling it out into other projects in Morocco or Botswana or wherever we decide to be.
So a couple more questions, Simon, please. In June, the company appointed an advisor who specialises in mergers and acquisitions. To me, that's a big signal that the company is looking to augment its portfolio, or will it be disposing of some assets as well?
A little bit of both. The model that we have in the company is kind of the hybrid model. It's exploration, it's the trading, and it's the partnership model. And the partnership model helps the funding side of the company. So touching on the Kalahari Copper Belt as an example, that has value to the company. And if we can find partners who can come in and help us, because, effectively we're at the wrong end of the market. Being a small cap company in London, it's very difficult to access capital. So if we can find the right partners who can come in and accelerate the exploration on the ground, that's what we're looking for. And that at the same time would hopefully bring some money into the company. So, but in terms of that's kind of the disposal or partnership side of the business. But at the same time, we do always look for new opportunities. And I think, we kind of like the concept of trying to find something that could be brought into production quickly within sort of 12 to 18 months, small scale. So you've got small sort of capital exposure, but it's looking at the right sort of commodities that we like to focus on. So it could be tin, it could be tungsten, it could be antimony. And because we have the relationship in Rwanda with the trade facility partner who's doing the sales and marketing of our product, anything that we could find, whether it be tungsten or we'll say tin, we already have the partner in place who can deal with that end of the supply chain. But it's also being careful about the jurisdictions. We won't just go into any country. We like where we operate at the moment. Rwanda, Botswana, and Morocco, and we're very selective about where we want to be. We're not just going to jump in anywhere.
Yeah. So there's 4.5 months left of 2025. What news may investors hear about before the end of the year?
Well, obviously the trading is the nearest one that's going to come up. We'll have some information on Rwanda with regard to Rio Tinto and what the next phase of the program entails. In Morocco, we've been quite quiet on the news front in Morocco because what we've been trying to do is unfortunately it's work that's not really RNS generative. It's looking at the geology, looking at the sort of the bigger picture and the mineralized systems and more sort of scientific type of work. And we know that from conversations that we've had with several sort of mid-tiers and majors, their focus is always on what's the mineralized system, what is it, how does it form, rather than here's a nice trench with a bunch of results, here's a drill hole that looks very interesting. They want to see the bigger picture. So we're sort of giving that a lot of thought and sort of working through the sort of ideas and concepts so that we can tie it all together. But unfortunately, it doesn't generate, RNSs, which is not ideal for a small cap company when you've got your investors looking for news the whole time.
Okay, but there has been news from other elements of the portfolio, though.
No, definitely. And, we have a bit of a recess in Morocco at the moment because of the summer season. August is normally the holiday because it's so hot. But September, we will be back on the ground. We've got targets that we're going to be working on the existing portfolio. So we'll be doing ground-based geophysics, some trenching, and ideally working towards defining some drill targets on some of the other projects so that we can evaluate what's there. Because ultimately, you have to get drilling done to really appreciate what the project has. And that's where we need to get to, and that's where we want to get to.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Simon Rollason, Chief Executive of Aterian. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.